Thank you for making it to another episode of The Money Exchange. So it's me, Patrina, the It's My Money Lady. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And then I'm sure you're going to enjoy this particular session. So make sure you put a thumb up to say that you like it and share it with a friend. So Lee, I'm so excited to have you on. Hi.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here and I'm looking forward to talking about credit cards and saving money.
Yes, I can't wait to hear your various different tips. But before we go there, look at that background. I'm loving the fam. I'm look, I see various different little ones. Tell us who's back there.
Well, there's my wife, Anna, and then I have two young children. So my daughter right now is 5. Her name's Scarlett, and my son's 9, and his name's Timothy. And so what I did here is I kind of stole the idea from one of my buddies, Alex. He's an awesome photographer. And so I found the idea. I'm a little cheaper and frugal. Instead of doing like the big, 18 by 24 photos he did, I just went down to Staples and printed off a bunch of photos from all the vacations and did color copies that way. So a little more frugal.
Love it. I love it. And it ties right in with travel and what you do, showing your family in the various
Absolutely.
spots. I love it.
And so like I look at it as like, one, nobody really wants to look at this. They rather look at my family and the places we go when I do videos. And every time I come into my office, because I'm a full-time freelancer, I work from home full time, even before coronavirus and all that other garbage. Every time I walk in the office, I see those photos, and it just creates awesome memories in my mind. Going, wow, I remember going to this place with them, and it just like it gives you those endorphins, right? Those like really happy memories that like really get you motivated for the day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I go as far as saying it's your why, right? Why you do what
Mhm.
you do, why you continue on, and then showing them they can do what they want to do, put the work in and it can happen. So I love
Yeah.
it. So and you said that we don't want to see all of this. So what, not the ball thoughts? Was that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a white middle-aged man, I'm 45 years old and, I'm not a 2, but I'm not a 10. So like, you know, they rather look at my wife and my kids and the beautiful places than my face.
Okay, all right, I feel you. So now you dropped it in a little bit. So this session today is going to be saving with rewards, right? And
Mhm.
that's through credit card rewards. So when you think about saving and you think about getting out of debt, you don't think about credit card use. So talk to us a little bit about how those things come together.
Yeah, when I talk to people about using credit cards to help get out of debt and to help build a better future, people kind of look at me weird, right? Because it's a little bit of an oxymoron. Like people like, you want me to get into more debt to get out of debt? Like what? Right? And so, but the thing is, like your credit score and the way that you manage things really is like one of your biggest assets that you have in life, right? And it can be very easily you can mess it up. And next thing you know, like if you get those late payments, if you get a charge off, if you get a collection, I mean, that thing's stuck with you for years and years and years, and it can affect you for down the road for a long period of time.
Yes.
And so you have to treat like your credit score like your baby. You got to like, like I do a lot of sports analogies. You got to cradle that like a football, man. And you got to stiff arm people that try to mess with your credit. It's like, no, you better step off, son. Don't be messing with my credit.
You said step off, son. That's what I'm talking about, Lee.
And so that, I
That
mean,
football, step off, son. I love
yeah, and so it's people talk about your assets. They talk about your savings account, your checking account, your IRAs, and your home and your car. Those are all great assets, but the way that you got those assets a lot of times is based on having a great credit score and keeping yourself financially fit that way. I mean, I used to work in banking, and if my credit score was messed up, I would never even been able to get my job. Same
it.
thing if you're ever trying to get like a government job where you need like security clearance and those types of things. If you have a lot of debt, you may not get approved for that position, and so you need a good credit to make sure that you can make those proper steps in life, whether it's building income, getting an apartment, getting a home, or anything else like that.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize that one of the things you say, you may not get the job that you want, but you can also work for a company and not be able to be promoted for the same
Mhm.
reason, depending on which role you're going into. So it's really important. It's a 3-digit number that's very important. So let's talk about saving with reward. So how does one do that? How do you bring that all together?
Well, there's a lot of ways. And so I kind of have a philosophy. I call it travel more, spend less, and live better. And the way that you accomplish that is first off by taking care of your credit, like we just talked about.
Mhm.
When you take care of your credit, you can qualify for the best credit cards. You get those best credit cards, you get the highest welcome bonuses, you get the most rewards on every dollar that you spend, you get fabulous benefits. Like airport lounges, I like getting spoiled in the airport lounge, getting those free drinks
Yeah.
and free food and massages and everything else, right? And so you take those benefits, and then now instead of paying cash for your travel, you're using your rewards, and then the money that you save, you can have better experiences. Like my wife and I went to Sydney, Australia a few years ago,
Mhm.
and if we had paid cash for that trip, for the flight and the hotel and everything else, when it came time to pay, I think it was like $100 each to climb the Sydney Harbor Bridge, be like, well, I don't know, like we just spent so much money to get down here, and the hotels cost a lot, and we have a limited budget, right? But when you use miles and points, you're like, all right, the trip really didn't cost very much.
Yeah.
We just paid a little bit of taxes and fees. It's okay to splurge a little bit and do that once in a lifetime experience. That in order for you to do that later on, when you actually have more money, like maybe you got that promotion that we just talked about, or you paid off some debt and now you got a little bit more money. In order to recreate that experience, you got to fly all the way back down there,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
so by using the miles and points again, like you can do those experiences. You maybe splurge, like, wow, I heard about this really excellent restaurant, right? My buddy David and I went to Paris, and there's a restaurant called Le Tour d'Argent,
Okay.
that's right on the Seine River, overlooks the Church of Notre Dame. They serve duck as their specialty, and they literally have a wine book that I would say is probably like 5 inches thick.
Wow. So you didn't say
And
wine menu, wine book.
yeah, like a book of like all the different wines they
Yeah.
have.
Uh-huh.
And we use miles and points for that whole trip. And
Wow.
so we probably spent $300 or $400, getting 7 different courses of duck and like having some wine and all those other things. That if we paid cash for that, I don't know if that's really going to happen,
Yeah.
right? And so you can create these amazing experiences that you have those memories for years and years and years, or you can take that money and you can accelerate the debt payoff, right? Like we moved from LA to Nashville a few years ago,
Mhm.
and we're on a path now to paying off our home quickly. We got a 15-year mortgage. I'm looking at things. I'm like, all right, by keeping our expenses low, I'm paying a little bit extra. We're going to pay it off probably in the next 6 or 7 years.
Well, I
Yeah.
love that. And I think, you know what, and I'll have you talk about this a little bit, is the when people think about credit card debt, at least some of the people that I work with, it's, they think about, I've gotten to this debt because I went to the mall, I spent this and I did that. But your credit usage could be paying bills that you would pay regularly
Mhm.
anyway, and you would still earn the same sort of points and rewards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's probably a fallacy people talk about where they get the bad advice where they say, oh, you have to carry a balance in order to boost your credit.
Yeah.
Like that is not the case at all. Like pay off your credit cards in full every month.
Mhm.
Uh, Avoid that interest as much as you can. And again, some people can't do that, right? Like they're working to pay off that debt and everything else. And that's what we talk about. That's like the last step of that virtuous circle is taking the money that you save from your vacation budget and pay you having experiences, building your future, paying off your debt, building your emergency fund. I mean, that's really what it's all about.
Yep.
And the more that you can pay down your debt and get below like some of those thresholds of like the 50% credit card usage, the 30% credit card usage, those are like nice big steps that are going to boost your credit score. And then from there, then again, you're going to qualify for the best credit cards and you go around and around in that circle. And so you're spending money no matter what every month, right? Like you're paying your utility bills, you're paying for food, you all the different things that you normally pay with cash or a debit card.
That's if you have a car and needing to go out.
Exactly. All those different things, you can pay them with a credit card. Just main thing is just having that wherewithal to say, you know what, I got all this money in my sitting in my checking account that normally I would have been spending. Use that money to pay off your credit cards.
That's right. That's
I was
important.
really upset. There was a company called Debitize, that was wonderful. There was actually a way they would link up your checking account to your credit cards, and every time you charged, they would actually withdraw money from your checking account and set it aside like in a holding pattern, like
Hmm.
an escrow account, and then they would pay off your credit card for you. So that way, like you didn't get into trouble. And unfortunately, they went out of business. But you can basically do that on your own. There's nothing that says you can't pay your credit card multiple times throughout the month, or just like, or maybe even like once a week. So use your credit card for your purchases, and then once a week, just go in there and pay that sucker off. So that way, you're not paying a lot of interest on your debt.
Yeah. Now, what you just described, I wasn't familiar with the company you named, but I just interviewed somebody who's a co-founder of Spin Debt, and it
Okay,
essentially does exactly what you just said. You,
nice.
what the way that it's done is every time you make a purchase, it's like you just said with the credit card, and you make a purchase with the credit card. Well, prior to you doing that, you set up your spend that account, and then the amount that you want to go into that account based on your purchases or
Hmm.
from your purchases, and then when you make the purchase, that set dollar amount, $1, $2, $5, whatever it is, will go into that account, escrow type of account, and then at the end of the month, they'll pay whatever debt it is that you have allocated to pay. So that's
Oh, nice.
exactly how that works. It's called spin debt. But
Okay.
okay, so we talked about the use of credit cards and we talked about rewards. Some people opt to get cash back. So talk
Hmm.
a little bit about that, like rewards versus cash back. Is one more advantageous than the other, and do you accumulate them at the same rate?
Yeah, so I mean, it really depends on the credit card that you have, because each credit card has a different type of rewards that it earns, whether it's cash back or airline miles, hotel points, or whatever. Or unfortunately, some cards don't earn anything. You know, the only thing they earn is some interest you got to pay the bank, right?
Yeah, so mix
Uh, we don't want those ones.
them.
Uh, but really, it boils down to what's most important to you. Like right now, we're recording this during the time of coronavirus, right? Nobody's really traveling,
Right.
so a reward, airline miles or hotel credit card does nothing for you right now. Obviously you can accumulate things and plan for the future, but if you're focused on today and you got debt and everything else, don't use that miles and points credit card. Get a card that earns like cash back. And there are some that are like that just give a set amount for like any type of purchase, right? Like the City Double Cash gives you 2% cash back on everything that you purchase.
And which one was that? You said City Double Cash?
Yeah, City Double Cash. You earn 1% when you charge, and you get another 1% for every time you make a payment.
Okay.
So I mean that's a great card, no annual fee, everything else like that. But if you spend a lot on groceries, if you spend a lot on dining or travel or whatever, like gas or whatever type of like category that you spend a lot in, or if you're a small business person like you and I, you can get a small business card as well. But take a look at your budget and take a look at the categories where you spend the most and get a credit card that aligns with those categories. Because some of them will pay 3 or 4 or 5, even 6% cash back based on like the category that you're spending,
Yeah.
right? And so there's like I was doing writing an article right now. And so that one, I could talk about the best credit cards for grocery purchases, right? And
Yes.
so like the American Express Blue Cash Preferred, that one gives you 6% cash back on your groceries.
What, 6%?
Yeah,
I think everybody needs that one because everybody's buying more groceries than ever during this pandemic, right? So
absolutely.
I'm surprised that they were able to sustain that given
Yeah,
that factor. So maybe people don't know it. So that one is the American Express. Which one? Blue Card Preferred?
Blue Cash Preferred.
Blue Cash Preferred?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the one because I know at least our household, that's the category that increased. I'm chuckling because today, like I'm a big fan of now the grocery delivery. So I
Hmm.
made a grocery delivery today and I literally forgot an item and I and this is I'm embarrassed saying this, but I ordered another order so that I can get that item. My mom was like, "You could have just ran to the store and got that one item." But anyway, I said that to say, well, I find that I'm like one now I have the convenience of them bringing it, but
Hmm.
also that I just when I need something, I just do it. So that category in our budget has definitely moved a little bit than
Hmm.
it was before COVID. So that's
Yeah.
definitely something that I even want to look into.
And
So
that's the
you know what?
thing is that your life changes
Mhm.
regularly, right? A year ago that probably wasn't the case,
Right.
but now it is. A year from now it may be completely different again.
Yes.
And I look at it as like I have like before we were recording, we talked about our friend Julia that has like a lot of credit cards. I have over 40,
Wow.
and I tell people don't do what I do. Like you do not need 40 credit cards,
I
you
don't know
know.
how you guys do it. Like that is like not I'm not gonna use it. That's different, right? So talk about
Well,
how you do it.
Well, the majority of them just sit in the drawer and do nothing, right?
Okay.
I have some of them that I never spend anything on. I
Okay.
just have them for the free annual night for the credit card, right?
Okay.
For the hotel. Um, but I keep like probably like 3 or 4 in my wallet, and then I keep like my business cards in my wallet based on like purchases I'm going to make. And so I just don't really worry about them. They just sit in the drawer. They don't exist, in my mind, anyways.
Okay.
But the thing is that, like, for the average person, you probably need like a two or three different cards,
Mhm.
right? Like a general purpose card, a one that maybe earns like hotel points that gives you a free night, and then one that maybe gives you like free bags when you fly and like priority boarding and stuff like that.
Yes.
But the main thing, my point was that your credit cards are like your little employees. They are out there generating benefits for you. They're earning rewards, those types of things. And a lot of credit cards, they change their benefits. They change their reward structure. They change everything every couple of years, and they're trying to do, they're trying to fine tune those benefits and those rewards based on what's happening in the marketplace.
Mm,
And while they may make that change and may be beneficial for somebody else, for you, it actually may be worse.
okay.
And so if that credit card is not earning enough benefits to justify the annual fee or to justify being carried in your wallet,
Mm.
maybe it's time to fire them and hire a new one, you
I
know?
love that analogy. Oh my goodness. That is so I wrote that down. So that will
Yeah.
be in the show notes.
Do
I love
do
that.
your annual review every year. Hey, you got rated a 3, you better step it up. Otherwise we're going to get rid of you. And so that's the way you look at it. That those are your employees, and they're either generating enough for their paycheck is the annual fee that you pay.
Yeah.
And if they didn't earn enough to justify that paycheck, they either got to adjust something or you got to get rid of them. But I will say this, that especially right now during COVID, banks are really like, it's a little bit easier to be able to get that annual fee waived.
Mm,
So what you do is you call them up and you basically say, you know what, I've had this card for a little while. I think I've been a good customer, but the card just really isn't working for me right now. The annual fee is a little high. I'm not using XYZ benefits. And just don't tell them that you're going to cancel. Just say I'm thinking about canceling. And they'll go, oh, well, let me see. What they'll do is at the first level, they'll look at they call them retention offers.
mhm.
And so with that retention offer, they may be able to waive some or all the annual fee. They may give you some points, or they may tell you, okay, if you spend X number of dollars, sometimes in total or sometimes per month for a little while, we'll give you X number of points.
Got it.
And so it's a nice way to kind of cushion the loss of some of those benefits, or just even if you were planning on keeping the card anyways, it's a nice way to get a little extra back in your pocket. Like I have the Amex Platinum is one of the cards I have, and it has a huge annual fee. I think it's like $550. I called them up like this summer. They gave me $500.
I
So
love it. So then that takes care of that.
yeah, the card's $50 for me for the next year. You
So
know,
so Lee, tell us why are you doing this? Why was this important for you?
which part?
The getting into doing this, into rewards, and
Oh,
how you made
oh,
this
sure.
like a freelance work for you.
Yeah. So, um, one, I just like winning. It's like you get it's like you're figuring out the rules and you're figuring out, okay, if I do this, this, and this, I can kind of win at the game. So that part's very attractive for me just mentally. But really, it was a lot of, I just want to be able to take my family on trips and without actually spending a lot of money. And so I'm able to do awesome trips with my daughter, my son, sometimes both of them, sometimes just me and my wife. And I'm able to create a lot of memories that otherwise wouldn't be able to, because I'm not going to spend $10,000 on a trip,
Yeah.
but like I took my wife when we lived in LA a few years ago. I took her from LA to Rome in business class. We stayed at the Waldorf Astoria in Rome. We stayed at the Park Hyatt in Milan, and then we stayed at a nice hotel like on the Cinque Terre on the coast of Italy.
Mhm.
Like 5-star hotels and like in Milan and Rome, and business class back and forth. That trip would have cost like $10,000. Uh, Paying a little bit on the annual fees and a little bit on the taxes on the flight. The cost, like our out of pocket cost, was like I think $1,200.
So
something like
I
that.
mean, like folks listening to this, it's great that I have the show, you have the expertise, and people are now listening to it. But how did you know to do that? Like, how did you you just like I want to take her on a trip and let me figure out how to get all these points. Like, what? How did you know that this was a lane that you can go down to
Sure.
get the end result that you just described?
Well, I think obviously I have a little bit of advantage because I've been like really into this. I've been doing it for years and years and years, right? But the good thing is that people like me write about their experiences all the time about using their miles and points. And literally, all you got to Google is say, whatever airport you're from, or like the major airport, right? Like I'm in Nashville now, and there's not a lot originating in Nashville, but Atlanta or Chicago or New York or Dallas, they're easy airports for me to get to. I can say, okay, Dallas to Rome, Miami to Rome, or New York to Rome or whatever. Just Google that and how to do that with miles and points.
That
And you'll find people writing their articles and saying, here's how to do this trip. This is how many miles it costs. This is how much we did the X, Y, and Z. And then you can figure out, okay, how what are the right miles and points that I need to earn to be able to redeem that. Right. And so um, I look at it as like there's like kind of like a 5-step process. First, you look at where you want to go. Then from there, then you say, okay, what airlines fly there? And then you look at what hotel brands are there, right? Like I went to St. Kitts a few years ago, and I have a bunch of points in a bunch of different programs. But say you're like you went all in on Hilton.
mhm.
Hilton's a great brand, a lot of wonderful hotels. Like we just talked about the Waldorf Astoria and stuff like that. But if I go to St. Kitts and you have a ton of Hilton points, guess what? You can't use them. They don't have a Hilton property on St. Kitts,
Uh,
right? There's Marriott, there's Hyatt, and then a bunch of local brands. And so you have to look and see what hotels are there because either one, they don't have a location at all
mhm.
where you want to go, or maybe you want to go for your anniversary and it's like something amazing, or like a special birthday or something like that. And the only thing they have is a Holiday Inn Express. Like, well, not exactly getting a lot of upgrades at the Holiday Inn Express. It's not exactly like an aspirational moment. And so you want to look and say like, what type of hotels they have, and you go, okay, you know what? They only have the economy brand there. I want something that's a little bit more upscale, and so I'm going to look and see what are the upscale brands that are there. You can simply go on like Expedia, and you can look and see, like, okay, what are the hotels in this city? You can go on Expedia and look at what are the airlines that fly to this city, and though that'll give you clues to say, like, okay, I need to earn the American Airlines, and I need to earn your Marriott points, right?
Okay.
And so you go that way. Generally, getting the credit card for those airlines and hotels is great because you're going to earn a welcome bonus when you first sign up, and then using those cards for all your purchases, you're going to accumulate a bunch of miles as well. You
W-
know,
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Let's say somebody's listening today, have not done any of this, and may have a credit card or two, but use your process or model you just mentioned. How long does it take? Maybe will answer my own question. So,
sure.
How long does an average person, so average grocery, average shopper, whatever, how long will it take for them to accumulate points for such a trip that you described, and or some sort of sizable cash? What's
Sure.
that timing like?
I mean, really, it all varies. If you want to fly in business class or first class, it's going to take a little while, right? Because there's a lot more miles and points to be able to book that. Um, right now, if you can maintain your credit, and this is what we talked about earlier, because of the coronavirus, and because so many people have lost jobs and so many people are having difficulty paying, uh, right now it's kind of like a weird situation where a lot of people are hurting, a lot of people aren't traveling and stuff like that. Airlines and hotels, they're offering sometimes really huge welcome bonuses to be able to get their credit card because they know that if you have been able to keep your credit good during this time and you've been able to keep your job, most likely during good times, you're still going to keep your credit good and you're still going to keep your job and everything and keep making that money that we can make those payments on your card. And so right now is a wonderful time. I was looking earlier, like the IHG credit card is right now is giving 140,000 points.
Well, which one?
The IHG Rewards Club Premier card, 140,000 points.
Oh,
That's several nights at a hotel, like a mid-sized hotel. And
yeah.
so if you can keep your credit high through good times and bad, you are like the ideal customer for a bank.
Okay.
and like we talked about, like your credit score is your baby. You gotta keep that, keep it well, like through good and times and bad. Like no matter what, even if you can't pay your credit card off in full, like we talked about earlier, at least pay the minimum
Yeah, a minimum on time.
and
On
keep it
time.
on time. What I do with every card, as soon as I get the card, is I set up automatic payment of the minimum,
Mm,
no matter what. Okay, yeah, sometimes maybe life happens and you're not able to pay it off in full. That's fine.
mhm.
Life happens. Maybe you pay a little bit of interest. That's like your slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
But the main thing is don't miss out on that payment. Don't get a late fee and
Yeah.
don't get that 30, 60, 90-day late
Yeah.
on your credit report, because that late payment is going to be on there for 6, 7 years,
Yes.
sometimes even 10,
Yeah.
and you don't want that. You don't want that, like that scarlet letter, sitting on your chest for all that period of time, because it's going to harm you and you're going to miss out on job opportunities. Your insurance rates could go up in certain states. You
Yes.
may not you may not get approved for that apartment or that mortgage that you want.
Yeah.
There's always, like, it's like all these dominoes could fall in a very negative way just from like missing that one payment.
That's exactly right. Now, Lee, you have dropped some gems. People like what? Like who's Lee? Like where do you come from? Who are you? What do you do? What have you done? Tell
Sure.
us a little bit more about Lee.
So at a very early age, I had a kind of a crash course in like what not to do with money. My dad was a bankruptcy attorney,
uh,
and I started working for his office when I was like 15 years old.
mhm.
And so I learned all the ins and outs of like kind of like the accounting of his office. I would hear people's stories, and you learn what not to do with money. I mean, I'm not perfect. I made mistakes with money as well. Even with learning all that, it just, it happens. We're human, and you can't beat yourself up over it. You got to just move forward.
Yeah.
During college, I started a company where I did business plans for companies looking for debt and equity funding. Did bankruptcy consulting for my dad's clients,
Mhm.
to basically like do the financials and showing them how to get out of the debt and pay off their debts. And then the dot-com crash happened, and so I stopped that, went into financial planning and transitioned into banking. And so I was able to like help people save for their future, through like IRAs and 401ks and savings accounts, and getting good rates on their loans and those types of things.
Yep.
And then I moved into like more like the banking side, like the corporate finance, where I became effectively like a divisional CFO for a regional bank.
Hmm.
And I was there for about 13 years. And then I went from being like, really high. And then, like I call it, I went from being a hero to a zero. I used to be the guy that my boss would send me in to go fix whatever's going wrong in one of the divisions. And I went from that to basically, in my eyes, at least, I was basically being forced out. They were trying to make my life uncomfortable to the point where I quit. Um, and
Wow.
so I ultimately quit and moved from LA to Nashville 2.5 years ago, in 2018. And then now I'm a full-time freelancer. And so I basically get to hang out with my kids, take them to school, take them to sports, take them to doctors. And then in between all that, I write articles on the internet talking about personal finance and real estate, investing, credit card rewards. And then I also host a podcast. So it's a fun life. But it was one of those things where I was focused and saved. I did have a little bit of an advantage. I had a good income when I was working for the bank, and but the frugalness within my mind
Mhm.
is one of the things that kept me from living like inflating my lifestyle throughout all that, so that way I could save and could focus on paying things off, to get me to the point where, what, I can give up a $200,000 job in LA and move from there to Nashville, where, as a freelancer, as a contract employee, like my income, varies widely,
Yeah.
on a monthly basis. And so, by being diligent about paying things off and focusing on that and building up kind of a cushion, um, I was able to make the switch and make that leap and move here. And then now I'm here on podcasts and video, like with people like you, and just enjoying it and trying to kind of share those tips with other people. And again, people may have latched onto that $200,000 mark that I just talked about. $200,000 in LA doesn't go very far. Let me tell you. You know, I was spending because I had to wake up super early, like the last 6 months before I quit, I was waking up at 4 a.m. To be at work by like 5:30, and then leaving. And my wife would drop the kids off at daycare at 6:30 in the morning, so that way she could go to her job. She was a HR manager for a manufacturing aerospace manufacturing company that was 7 days a week. So she worked on weekends. She worked sometimes at night, overnights and everything. Uh, and then I would leave the office by 4:30, so that way I could get home in time. So that was like 11-hour day just
Yeah.
from getting at the office 5:30 to 4:30, already 11 hours, to then get home in time to pick up the kids from daycare at 6:30. So now the kids are at daycare for 12 hours,
Wow.
and you get home at 7 and you spend like 2 hours with them, and then you put them in bed at 9. And then I was back basically back to work or for a little bit before I went to bed.
Yeah.
So it's not a good life as far as that goes, because I had a 3-hour round trip commute, a lot of stress, and everything else. So it was good money, but I paid $3,000 a month for daycare, let alone the cost of housing and everything like that in LA and everything else. So the money goes quick, and that's why I'm glad I moved to like to Nashville, because the lower cost of living, like our house here was like half the cost and 30% bigger on
Wow.
a half an acre of land, and it's tremendous. And my wife, when we were contemplating leaving California,
Uh-huh.
she's like, but I'm gonna miss the beach. I'm gonna miss X, Y, and Z. I'm like, how often do we go to the beach when we live here, anyways? You know, I'm working, I'm commuting, you're working, you work on the weekends a lot of times. Like we never go to the beach. The only time we go to the beach is when we go on vacation to other countries. You know,
And you
you
still,
know?
when COVID really lets up, you can still do that, right? So
Absolutely. And so I'm like, look, we have enough miles and points. We can fly to California anytime we want. The biggest thing that we miss from California, although, it's getting a little chillier here in Nashville, like I miss the weather a little bit, but really it's like the friends,
yeah.
and luckily with like Facebook and stuff like that, you can keep in better contact with them,
Mhm.
but, like you said, once like COVID kind of lifts and we can travel more, then you meet up with people. You go, hey, I'm flying to like, Colorado to go snowboarding. You want to meet up with me? And then you kind of just meet in the middle, you
Yeah.
know?
So let me ask you, were you doing the writing, podcasting, any of that as a what we would call side hustle before you went into it full time when you made the move?
Well, I started my podcast after we moved,
Okay.
because I just didn't have enough time for that. But the blog, I started that in actually December 2012. So it's been 8 years now,
Wow.
since I started it. But really, it was not so much of a side hustle. Like I think, well, actually, at first maybe I thought it was gonna be a side hustle. Everybody like has those dreams where like, oh, I'm gonna start a blog. I'm gonna make all this money. I'm gonna write an article and throw it on the internet. And all of a sudden, like people are gonna be throwing money at me. That doesn't happen. You
No,
know.
it doesn't.
And for me it was more just like a creative outlet,
Mhm.
because like in my old job all I would do all day long is sitting there in Excel, crunching formulas that are like all the way across the screen, like 3 or 4 levels deep. It's just like really insane, intricate stuff, and then putting those numbers in the PowerPoints and like doing presentations. Like that was kind of my life,
Mhm.
and so one, it was like a creative outlet, just talking about things, but also two, it was a way to show people like, look, we travel all the time, and although did make good money, like I'm too frugal. I'm not paying all this money to travel.
Yeah.
I'm only doing this because we have all the miles and points,
Yes.
and so I wanted to show people to do that. And we talked about this earlier in a sense where you asked like how many miles and points or how long does it take for people to do it. And I think people have like the fallacy that they go, I need to save up all these points and all these miles to be able to travel. Well, I look at it as like I have a family of four, and if I can if I can maybe get enough miles and points to pay for like my kids so that way they can fly for free, and
Mhm.
then I'm just paying the tickets for me and my wife. That's
Yeah,
a huge win,
that's a
you
huge
know?
win. Yes,
Or
absolutely.
like if we're going for like a week and I get enough points, like say from a sign up bonus from a
Uh-huh.
credit card, and I'm able to pay like 3 or 4 of those nights
Yes,
using those points.
yes,
Again, I just cut off like half the cost of the vacation. So
right.
you don't have to don't look at it as like a failure
Mhm.
for not being able to pay for the entire vacation
Mhm.
with your miles and points. If you can save 500 or 1,000 or $2,000, that's a huge win. And
Yes.
now instead of having to save up 3 or 4 or 5 years to be able to go on that vacation, now you can go much more frequently.
Yeah.
Like my kids, like we talked about, my kids are 5 and 9. And that was also part of the reason for quitting my job and moving here, is that we like at the time we moved, they were 3 and 7, and, and we just marveled about how quickly they've grown up, and like a lot of things that we missed,
Yeah.
and not just missed from like being gone at work, but also even when you are home, you're thinking about like the project you got to get
Yeah,
done, or
exactly.
the deliverable the next day, or the meeting you got to prepare for, or whatever, and you're missing out on so much of their life,
You're not present.
and,
Right. You're there
yeah,
in the
and
house, but
so
you're not present in the moment.
yeah, and my wife sometimes gives me a hard time. She's like, "We go on too many vacations." I'm like, "Look, nobody's gonna feel sorry for you for going like say we're going on too many vacations.
Well,
That's
it's
not gonna
not
happen."
too much.
you know? And she's like, "I just want to stay home sometimes." I'm like, "I understand that. Like there's projects that need to get done, like, you know. But the thing is, even now sometimes with her job, because she's still working at her job, and I still have, work with clients and everything, or different projects I want to get done for myself. When you're home, too often, like it's too tempting to just say, you know what? I'm going to sneak off and go do this thing. I'm going to sneak off and go do this thing. Next thing you know, you're gone for like 4 or 5 hours. You're not actually spending time together. And so when you're actually on a vacation, you're spending quality time together. You're creating
Right.
those memories. Like I said, my kids are young, and I didn't want to wait until they're like teenagers to start traveling with them
Yeah.
and doing all these things, because guess what? When they're teenagers, they're going to be too cool for like hanging out with dad.
They are.
You
And then they're gonna want Sally to come or Bob to come. And yes,
Yeah.
it's so true. And I totally agree with you. Because I find when my husband and I, when we travel, like when we either try to do a day trip, or like you said, we're both off from work or home from work or whatever, and we said, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna watch a movie or we're gonna whatever. It's like, okay, let me do this project real quick. Let me go and I'll just do 2 podcast recordings. And then before you know it, it's like, 10 o'clock at night and you didn't do
Oh yeah.
anything. When you really move away from the everyday, what I call hustle and bustle, and you're away, even if it's not out of the country, it's domestic, but different than at home,
Mhm.
you really do take the time. So I encourage at least once a year. I feel like people should do it because it is not the same as a staycation. Staycation for me is getting that project done. It's rearranging the office. It's doing more laundry. That's what staycations are. They're not really the time to spend together thing. So I completely agree with what you're saying. So people listening, they want to say, what do you feel if you had to say 2 things they should walk away from all the great gems that you've shared regarding and I want you to say I tried to write it quickly, but I couldn't get it down. Travel more, spend less. What was the other one?
Live better.
Live better. So in order for them to travel more, spend less, and live better, what are 2 things that you want to make sure, 2 priority things you want to make sure they hear?
Well, the number one thing, like we talked about at the beginning, is taking care of your credit. The
Mm,
credit, like having a good credit score, is the number one thing that you need to do. It's going to open up all these different avenues for you.
right.
That's number one. Number two is think about where you want to go, what you want to do, whether it's cash back or airline miles, hotel points. Think about what's the most important to you right now and where you spend the most money, and get a card that aligns with those goals and the way that you operate. you know that's going to accelerate your ability to be able to achieve those goals, whether it's paying off your debt, building up your emergency fund with like a cashback credit card, or earning those miles and points to be able to book that next vacation. Getting a card that earns those bonus points is going to get you there that much faster, because if you're earning only 1 point for every dollar you spend, you got to spend a lot of dollars to make that happen, right? But if you're earning two, three, four, five, six, like you're there much quicker,
Yes.
and most of us don't have unlimited sources of money,
Mhm.
and we don't spend massive amounts of money every month. So getting those bonus multipliers are really going to help us get there quickly. I will say this, another couple quick gems. Like we talked about, most of us are sitting at home. We're not going to the mall. We're not going to the store or whatever. Uh, One for convenience, and two for coronavirus. Uh, Whenever you shop online, do a couple things. One, go to cashbackmonitor.com and type in whatever store that you're going to go buy from. What it does is kind of like an Expedia, and it shows you all the different sites that will pay you, whether it's cashback, miles, or points, to basically click through their link to complete your purchase. and
Wow.
you're gonna
That's
spend the money
such a
anyways
gem. Yes.
at like Kohl's or Target or Office Depot or whatever. You're gonna spend that money anyways. Click through that link, take 15 seconds, and basically get a little extra there, right?
Right. Okay.
That's
Another
number
tip.
one.
Uh-huh.
Number two, as whether you're ordering takeout or occasionally, you know, dining in or whatever, register your credit cards for one, this thing called Dosh. Dosh is a cashback app where basically you link your card once, you don't ever have to remember it again. And now at participating restaurants, you're going to earn anywhere from, I don't know, I think it's like 4 to 10% cash back.
And that's DOSH.
Yes. So
Wow.
it's automatically, they call it auto magically,
Okay.
that one. And then there's another one, like whatever your favorite airline is, or hotel, look up, like me, it's like Southwest, and then dining rewards, like Google it.
Mhm.
You find a link. That one is a dining reward. So you'll earn extra miles or points, again, at participating restaurants. So you're going to earn from your credit card,
Mhm.
you're going to earn from Dosh, and now you're going to earn dining rewards.
Wow.
And so, and if you like cash back, instead of doing that, just go to iDine, like the letter I, and then dine.com. And instead of doing miles and points, you can get cash back, anywhere from like 5 to 10%. And so if you're doing it the right way, right, you're getting a credit card that pays you for dining
Mhm.
anywhere from like 1 to 4%, or you're getting Dosh that's giving you anywhere from a 4 to 10%, and then you're getting iDine that's anywhere from like 5 to 10%. Getting those all together, if you're hitting it correctly, and the restaurant participates in both those programs, you're getting like 20% cash back on your meal. I mean, that's huge, right? Like
That's huge.
that means literally that means like every fifth meal is like basically free.
I love that. That's huge. Oh
So
my goodness.
do those couple things, and just watch that money roll in. What I do, more for like, because again I use miles and points, but what I do is to kind of generate like a little bit of a slush fund for myself when I go on vacation. That cash back I earn from like those programs, just set it into like an online savings account, right? And then now you have that money set aside. When it comes time to traveling, you go, hey, I got like $400 or $300 or whatever the number that you've been able to accumulate. That's like your fun money to have like an awesome meal, to have, a great experience that you just, otherwise you're like, I don't know if I really want to spend that money. Like you now have permission because you have this like found money that you can do that with, and boom, you're ready to rock and roll. It didn't really bust your budget because it's like extra free money that you didn't have to pull out of your paycheck. You didn't have to
Yeah,
do
exactly.
anything. It's just money that's already there for you.
I love it. I love it. So, before we roll out of here, I have to say, ball thoughts. How
Yeah.
did you? Looking at you, I know how you probably came up with it, but was it really as simple as that? Like, it's so fitting, but I'm like, talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, the thing is,
Well, I'm sorry, Lee. I don't mean to interrupt you. Tell them what ball thoughts is, and then go into how you came up with it.
yeah. So bald thoughts. It's like, so I'm bald, and it's like I'm thinking about things. Um, Basically, that's my primary website where I talk about travel experiences, credit card reviews, travel product reviews, loyalty program updates, those types of things. Basically, again, just following that whole travel more, spend less, and live better lifestyle. That's my website. My buddy David Esquire, who's we became awesome friends with him after he photographed our wedding, and we were just hanging out at a happy hour one time. We were like, you know how it is, like as an entrepreneur, trying to come up with like a good domain name,
Mhm.
for your website, and making sure that it's not taken on Twitter and Instagram and all the different channels. It's frustrating, And so he came up with the idea of Bald Dots. And so I basically registered the name, and that was 8 years ago. Started it, but yeah, it's it's funny, when people look at it, like, I have a unique icon as well. That's basically me with my arms folded
Yeah,
with my bald
I
head
know. I saw
popping up
that. I
there.
was like, Wow, this all really goes together. So now,
Yeah.
because I was waiting to hear the story, I couldn't wait to ask you that question because I know you said you've been blogging for some time. So as I look at you now, I'm like, okay, were you bald back then as well? I wasn't sure because I didn't know you back then. So I guess
Yeah.
so. If you know the
Yeah,
name.
no, I had that lucky or slash unfortunate circumstance where I started balding at an early age.
Okay.
And rather than do the comb over and like, fight it, when I used to have like probably, like maybe like about an inch worth of hair, I kept it, cropped pretty tight. And then finally, I think I was like 25, somewhere in my mid 20s. I said, you know what? Mm, Screw it. I'm just gonna do it. I took a razor. I went straight up the head, straight up the middle. Gave myself a reverse mohawk, and like there was like no turning back. And so basically, been bald ever since.
Yeah.
Um, it's like I tell people I wish I had a choice in the matter, but I don't. But luckily, I have a pretty good shaped head. I don't have. I'm not like Sloth from the Goonies. Like and my wife tells me she loves my bald head, and I'm like, I'm glad because I really don't have a choice in the matter, you know, but it's all good,
Yeah.
and it's like it's one of those things that just sets me apart.
I
I embrace it. I tell people, you know what, my brain's just so big, it just pushes my hair out. I don't know, like I don't have to tell you,
That's wonderful. So, oh
but
my gosh, this has been a wonderful episode, and I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I probably can go on with you. Just so much. You just gave so much information. I truly appreciate this. I'm gonna drop as much as I can in the show notes. I don't know if you saw me going to the side that was taking
yeah.
notes over there. One for the show notes, two for myself. So thank you for everything that you've shared. I really appreciate it. And again, tell them where they can find you.
So if you want to learn about airline miles, hotel points, and those types of things, baldthoughts.com. Same thing on Bald Thoughts on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything else. If you want to learn about my podcast, I have over 130 episodes where we talk about the best things to do in cities around the world, small cities, big cities. Like I was just telling Patrina, I interviewed Lagos, Nigeria earlier this afternoon. That's wetravelthere.com. It's on all the major podcast platforms. We Travel There with Lee Huffman.
Yeah, love it. So Lee, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on.
Absolutely.